Welcome everybody and good morning. This is Wednesday, September 1. It's kind of smoky outside, it's cool, but welcome to a new month in September. As we always start off, I always like to look at the epidemiology first, so let's start with this. Gary, what's new on the epidemiology right now? Looks like I'll have to take this one. Go ahead and show us our first slide. What you show on this first slide is foundation cases. So SBMF is Sutter Bay Medical Foundation. So this is all the ambulatory tests that are run, and you can see this latest surge is showing some very, very encouraging trends. We were worried about how the schools going back in would affect this, but so far it's looking okay. The next slide is actually from the hospital. And you know, hospitals are often a little bit lagging indicators. I should say the foundation data I showed you is real time, that's updated every day. This hospital shows the COVID positivity by week, and so this is a week in arrears. They did have a little blip last week. We don't know if that's going to be sustained or if this is just a late stage type thing. The schools are back in, and we haven't read a whole lot about the schools. So we'll see. I think all we can say is it looks hopeful. I wouldn't take your seatbelt off just yet, but the signs are encouraging. So what I really want to talk about today in Gary's absence, and I'll just mention Gary is off cycling in Switzerland right now on a well-deserved vacation. So what I wanted to introduce you to today is the reorganization of the foundation, the Bay Area Foundation. So to be specific, I'm not talking about a reorganization of the medical group or the medical groups, but the foundation. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So this first slide just talks about Sutter Health itself. And so this is the footprint of Sutter Health. And you can see that the colors show the division between the Bay Area Operating Unit and the Valley Area Operating Unit. Throughout Sutter Health, we have two divisions of business. One is typically called the acute line of business, i.e. the hospitals. And I believe Sutter Health has 24 hospitals now. And the other line of business is the ambulatory line of business, or what we're familiar with is the foundations. We have, I believe about 5,000 providers in Sutter Health with 7 medical groups throughout this region. So let me now focus down on just the Bay Area with this next slide. These are some of the attributes, some statistics about the Bay Area. We have 14 hospitals in the Bay Area Operating Unit. We have 4 aligned medical groups that are exclusively contracted with Sutter Health, 1.5 million patients in the Bay Area. So this is let's start talking about now the Bay Area Medical Foundation. And we are one single foundation. The Bay Area went to a single foundation in the last couple of years. But if you look at how we listed at the bottom, you'll see 3 different foundations. We call those the legacy foundations. So just under the Bay Medical Foundation, you see Sutter East Bay Medical Foundation, Sutter Pacific Medical Foundation, and Palo Alto Medical Foundation. Those are legacies. They have no real tax ID number. They have no legal saying. They're just there. We kept them to give geographical references. So it's hard to say Smugger. People might not know where that is. So now we say Smugger, which is Sutter SPMF North, for instance. So those list the 4 medical groups that are here in the Bay Area. So let's talk about how we function. The next slide shows you how we function in the Bay Area, and I refer to this as silos. There are 4 medical groups attached in this foundation, and we tend to work in geographical isolation from each other. That is to say, our operations here are functionally distinct from the other medical groups. Our quality is tracked separately, our patient satisfaction is tracked separately, our finances roll up, and so Smugger and SPMF North are judged as their own entity. But the whole reorg we're talking about is going to turn this on its head a bit, so this is what's different. So my next slide shows you that instead of being vertically oriented or geographically oriented, we're now going to move to a horizontal organization. That is to say, we are going to enter into the concept of service lines. So service lines is to say that instead of having a compilation of all departments rolling up to Smugger, there'll be different service lines existing across the Bay Area. So let's take family medicine. We have a number of family medicine departments. They would no longer report up through SPMF North, but they would report up to the Bay Area Medical Foundation primary care service line. So that would be tracked as one entity across the Bay Area, as would all the different specialties and disciplines be tracked across the Bay Area. The question might come up is, why are we doing this? Well, the first reason is to increase communication among a given department, let's say rheumatology, to increase communication among the different rheumatology departments, increase collegiality for them. It's also to facilitate these departments being more nimble. So if we do find a best practice in one area, it can roll out across all the areas much more effectively, or new initiatives that come down that we want to institute across the Bay Area. This would be a way to do that. The other thing is it's going to further our integration. And this is kind of a recognition that the Bay Area is a very mobile population. There are literally tens of thousands of our patients who might live in the Valley and work in the East Bay, or live up here and work in the city. So we really are trying to create a seamless exposure, because they might live up here and see a doctor periodically in the city. And so we do want our offices to kind of function in a similar fashion. So let's get into some specifics. The next slide shows you how these service lines are developed. So a lot more information than you need on here, but for the purposes of our introduction, let's just look at the top row first. We will have 2 area CEOs, one in the north, one in the south, and in the top right will be a new position, which is a Chief Operating Officer for the foundation. So this is a new concept. And then the left 2/3 of the page, if you look underneath the area CEOs, we have service line executives. So these are individual positions, and there will be 7 service lines. And then you will see underneath that, the blue column, are the service line directors. And we're all very comfortable and knowledgeable about what a director does. A director sits above the managers. Here in Santa Rosa, we've had directors, typically a medical specialties director, a surgical specialties director. All the medical specialties roll up to that director. So we're familiar with that concept. But these will be a compilation of the directors across the Bay Area. And the next slide shows you how these service lines are compiled. And some of them make more sense than others, I'll admit. For instance, the primary care on the left side will be just family medicine and internal medicine. But as you get over to the right, they wanted to keep it to 7. You'll start to see a little more obscure aggregations, and you also see some existing service lines. So on the far right, under surgical specialties, you'll see neuromuscular, which it's been functioning as an entity for some time, along with oncology has been doing that, and cardiology already has some experience in functioning as a service line. So the listings and the aggregations of the departments underneath each service line are not specifically that they have relationships with each other. There is some historical legacy to this. Palo Alto has been using the service line model for many years, because they actually were 5 divisions that grew into one and needed to communicate with each other. And then the other thing, quite frankly, is the service line executives needed to level set exactly how many people they would be supervising. So hence the way that some of these are aggregated. But the bottom line is, you won't likely see a service line executive around very often because the actual operations in your office flow up to your manager and your director. So there still will be directors. We will not be having a director in Santa Rosa for every one of our specialties. The director for rheumatology, for instance, might be in San Francisco and be caring for a clinic here in Santa Rosa, and a clinic in San Francisco, and maybe even a clinic in Palo Alto. So there will be a little discordant in that way, so you won't expect that we will have 21 different directors here. But your director may be in some other area. And the director that you work with may have more than one department. So for instance, the rheumatology director that, like I said, might be in San Francisco, might also be supervising neurology or dermatology. So kind of similar to now, there'll be some groupings. Your interactions really will still be with your manager and the local director. So not a lot will change there. So really I just wanted to show you this concept as much as anything. The operational positions, quite honestly, are still being worked out, particularly at the director level. But I wanted to get everybody introduced to the concept of the service line being a horizontal mode of communication organization as opposed to the vertical line. There's still a lot more work to do on this in its fullest transformation, and the goal would be by 2023 that the service lines become our budgeting and accounting area. That is to say, right now we have an SPMF North budget, and SMUGR and SPMF North are judged on their budget. 2023, that would no longer be the case, but the family medicine or primary care service line would have their budget, and the performance of primary care across the Bay would be held to that budget. Likewise, the cardiology service line would have a budget, and they would control cardiology throughout the Bay Area. So it'll be a big change for us, but we're hoping that this will make us more facile, and I listed out the reasons why we want to do this, and we hope we can accomplish that. So a lot more to come on that, and I know it's complicated, but we'll try to explain it to you as we keep moving down this path. The last thing I wanted to show you is just something that came to you via an email recently that you might not have seen, and this is just another opportunity to help each one of us out as individuals. This is an opportunity to enter into a free mindfulness webinar. It's a series of 4 webinars that are put on by Dr. Mark Levine. Dr. Levine has kind of dedicated his career to mindfulness, has built up quite a following of that. And these are really webinars that he's going to go into the science and neurophysiology of how stress affects your body and the benefits of mindfulness. So if that's something that you're interested in, you can sign up. I will be sending out an email tomorrow morning with access to more information about this program, as well as how do you want to sign up for it. So that's all for now. Hopefully Gary will be back for our next video. Have a good day. We'll see you.